Well, welcome back, everyone, to another cup of joy. We're going hard in the paint here in November. I know some of y'all are downshifting as the holidays approach. We are staying committed to giving you that sip of goodness as you manage the intersection of work and life. We are back in the physical well-being sphere this week, which focuses specifically on physical well-being. So kick us off, Lane.
Yeah, so physical well being is the topic this week. I feel like this might be a relevant topic and something that's kind of like on our minds right now as the new year starts to become more present and impending. Something so many of us do is start to think about how we can change our fitness regime in the new year. And I think whenever I have made my own fitness goals, whether it's New Year's resolution goals or just like throughout the year, just saying, I want to start doing this or that physical health wise, it is something I have always struggled to maintain over a period of time, which is why I keep making these goals because it's like if I were to just stick with the goal that I initially set, I wouldn't really necessarily have to be constantly making new ones. So the topic today is just how do we change the way we set our goals for physical health and especially fitness and integrate it more into a lifestyle that we can keep up with forever because these are goals that we want to improve our life over a long period of time and not just for a short period and just to obviously there's the goals that we set just to like fit into the dress or to get to a specific point for an event or for a specific time, but primarily, we're setting goals so that we feel better and that we, feel better about our bodies and feel better about our health over a period of time and potentially for the rest of our lives. So, how do we do that? And why is it so hard?
Mhm.
Liz, what do you think
Hmm.
initially?
Girl, well, first let me just be transparent with y'all. I am not showing up as an expert in the sense of I'm on team struggle on this as well. So I will certainly display that, they say when you know better, you do better. And I always say that ain't true. I'm a display today. Why knowing better don't mean that you do better. And actually we can just start with that. Like I think the idea of knowing, right, that you need to do better, knowing that you need to be fit, or even knowing how to go about it in the sense of what activities you should or shouldn't not be participating in is not the same as activating it and maintaining it. And really we're talking about physical well-being this episode. However, when it comes to goal setting in general, we humans generally suck, right? At not so much setting them. We be coming up with some good stuff, but maintaining and activating in a consistent manner. So we're going to talk about physical health today, but I think you could really apply most of what we will talk about as challenges and solutions to goal setting in general. Because even when you think about this concept of physical health as a lifestyle, it should be well-being as a lifestyle. And we could look at any topic we talk about on here and think about how could we activate that as a lifestyle. And I think that is a great place to start to think about things as a lifestyle. But when I think about a barrier to physical health or any other health and well-being focus, we just live in a world that's moving so freaking fast that we're all just trying to keep up. And so, I ain't about to sit here and say that I have the ideas and answers for how we change that, but I do know that that existence of this fast-paced reality, and certainly in the United States more than other places, because there are other places who just they don't live like we live. And so I think just being in that space, in a reality where you just, whether you want to or not, you kind of have to live a fast life if you're alive, especially in the United States. So I think that's a challenge. um and we just have so many responsibilities with that being said. And as we rotate every Cup of Joy episode throughout these things, we have great conversations about great ideas, and then it's like, holy crap. And then there's the other thing I want to do better at, and the other thing I want to do better at. So I really like this concept of lifestyle because I think that it allows us to consider a different way of looking at this, to your point.
Yeah.
And even when I think about some of the solutions, all of the solutions I give when we do these episodes, I think one of the biggest challenges with any goal, and certainly fitness, is we kind of go so hard in the beginning that it's like, we trying to go from we ain't really been doing nothing for months or years to we're going to do it 7 days a week, right? And then you kind of kick yourself off for failure with that, because that's not a lifestyle. That's not even realistic. And I think this idea, to your point, Lane, of like waiting until there's a wedding coming up or summer's coming up or whatever, right? And now we need to fit in a dress or we need to look good for some pics, then that kind of forces that, because now, because you didn't do it as a lifestyle, you got to try to hit off 20 pounds in 7 weeks, right? And so that changes the way you can even show up to it. And so, again, kind of setting ourselves up for failure from the beginning, in that we're trying to like accomplish a super aggressive goal in a short period of time. And that doesn't allow you to use many of the approaches that have been proven to be more helpful, i.e., a little bit at a time, gradually get yourself into a build up to your goal. Because we over here, oh my God, it's November, and I'm trying to be cute by New Year's Eve for this dress, right?
Right. We self-sabotage by setting goals around these specific moments that we're trying to work towards. And it's
Well, and even think about it. The holidays are coming up. So what do? We're going to drop all them goals. We're not even going to start them till January, because we already know we get ready to go
right.
hard
Right.
in the paint and feast off of every piece of turkey. And now turkey's pretty healthy by itself, but maybe it's the portions. And so even
Yeah.
looking at that, like, it's okay if we are showing up to this in a way where we automatically are going to be opting out of our goal when it's inconvenient. Again, we kind of started off on the wrong foot. So now it's like we can talk about this now, girl, but I'm probably not going to activate till like after, because I already know I'm not going to be able to say no to my grandmama's pie or whatever, right? So then it can't be a lifestyle if for 2 months out of the year for sure. Oh, and your
Mhm.
birthday and the holidays. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well then when are we gonna do it?
That's exactly I think you just laid out the problem really well.
The problem.
Yeah. And I think for me, when I look back at and yeah, we can talk a lot about solutions and ideas just from not necessarily like we've done it and we're great at it, but these are our ideas that we might have for you or for ourselves. But I think when it comes to the problem, I find a different problem than what you just described for myself personally. And it's I don't normally set physical fitness goals around a specific, like, I want to look a certain way at a specific time in the future. It's, I want to go really, really in depth into an activity. And so when it comes to, so I'll just tell the story of like,
Yeah, give me an example, because I
okay,
don't know what you're talking
so
about.
basically, like for me, a good example is yoga. So I, when I got into yoga,
I
I
feel
got
like we're in a confessional, you guys. This should be a safe place. No one
into,
tell what Lane's about to share, even though we know this is being
it's,
publicized
yeah,
everywhere.
well, it's not that deep, but like, but I do think that others may have experienced something like this. And so what happened is when I got into yoga, I got into one of the most intense forms of yoga that you can do, which is Ashtanga yoga. And this form of yoga, traditionally it's done 6 days a week. I think you rest on Sundays and then you rest anytime there's a moon day. So a full moon or a new moon is a rest day. So you do it 6 days a week. You're supposed
Look,
to
I'm
do
over here
it.
like already failed, would never do it. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, yes, so you're supposed to do it actually every single morning, and you're supposed to get up before the sunrise and do it at 5 or 6 a.m. And you're supposed to, it's a very intense form of yoga. Like just even the physical aspects of it, it's you're doing the same positions every day, the same asanas, and then you increase every time the teacher sees that you've like successfully completed the last pose, then they give you the next pose. And it's like it builds on itself over time. And it's not to get too much into that form of yoga, what it is, I think it's really, really awesome, and it's really helpful for a lot of people, especially people who struggle with addiction, because it's kind of a replacement for some. It's addictive because you get like this like feeling of like success and satisfaction when you. It's addicting when you get the next pose, and then you can see your progress so well. Like every time it's the same, so you see every little progress that you make, you can see it. So I went full in on this form of yoga a few years back, and I really loved it. And something that, and Liz, since you know me, you know that I do this in other areas too. Like I'll go all in with something and kind of like don't know how to moderate it to the point where like now it's like, if I can't do it the 6 days a week, or I can't do it for the every single morning, and I don't see the progress for a week because I took a break, now I'm like, why am I even doing it? Like now I can't even do it at all. And like that is my problem. And so I did stop actually, and I haven't picked that back up since. And part of it is because as much as I loved it in the moment when I was doing it and could do it that intensely, I didn't love all of the other things that went with being so attached to the everyday physical intensity. And so I didn't like that I had to rearrange my whole day around the fact that I was going to need to be ready for yoga at this time, or like that I didn't like how I had to plan my meals actually around that, because you can't eat for like at least 4 hours before it. So if I was doing it in the evening, I would have to be really careful about what I ate, because you're doing these inversions, and then it's like, and so
you're throwing up on yourself. Great.
Yeah. So that, and then I didn't like the self-talk that went with, if I didn't move on fast enough to the next pose, or if I, took a break and came back and didn't see the progress, or that I went back, my progress decreased. So like I did stop. And I think the win for me is like the last probably 6 or 7 months for me, I've been able to, with intention, integrate yoga into my life without it being this, because the whole point of this is, how do we take these goals into a lifestyle? So it's, how do you make this part of your life potentially forever, without it being like, now I need to be a regular at this studio, and I need to pay all this money, and I need to go every morning. And like, that's the all in mentality that I think a lot of people see. And then you set these goals for yourself, and like you said, you go all in for a time. And then it's like, what happens when you can't do that anymore? Do you really think that for the next 3 years, you're going to be able to go all in with whatever this goal is? So, and I can talk more about like just my recent like revelations around this and why I brought this topic to Cup of Joy today. But I think, Liz, do you feel like you've had that experience as well?
No.
Where no?
I'm looking at you. I'm like, for all the audio only listeners, they're not going to see my face this entire time. And I'm over here like, WTF, Lane, why would you even, so I'm in coach mode right now. My first question is why? Why for you? Why would you pick that? Right. And then for everyone else, like, why do we pick the thing that we pick? And I think on broadly speaking, we tend to, I think that if it's not all in and over the top, then it ain't nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And so again, from the beginning, you almost ensure failure, because that right there, that mindset for moving towards growth is not what's up, because the mind, the human reality is that we tend to err towards inconsistency. We tend to err towards the vacillation of confidence in our mind at any one time. On top of the fact that, just again, we live in a world that's moving so fast. There are so many responsibilities, so many other realities going on, that to pick up and try to even commit to something like that, it is likely to end in failure. And then the problem when you do this enough times is you've now facilitated, quote unquote, proof that you're not good, that you're not going to succeed, that you might as well not, blah, blah, blah.
And then
And
you start
now we
building that
gotta,
barrier to the next time that you see something
exactly.
that you wanna
So
try. It's
now
like,
we
"No,
got
I
a
don't wanna go through
physical
that again."
health. Yeah. So now you got a physical health shortcoming and a mental or emotional mind shortcoming in that you have unintentionally facilitated a mindset that's going to have you questioning yourself, doubting yourself, and defeating yourself before you even get started.
Yeah.
So I haven't done that. I think probably years ago, but unfortunately slash fortunately, I live with myself because I'm me. And being the coach and clinician that I am, I'm on the table of Dr. Joy most of the time. And so there were, I mean, many, many years ago, I think I may have tried, clearly nothing that extensive because I just never would have done it. I mean, I think the most extreme physical health type of thing I was ever involved in is when I was in sports in high school. And I did opt for the coach that was more difficult and all of that because I am a hard driver, and but there was all kind of structure around that for me,
Mhm.
and so I was able to succeed in it because that was part of a program,
Yeah.
and so
Mhm.
so outside of that, I think in my younger years I quickly sort of assessed how that all works and doesn't work, and so I kind of started many years ago, probably my 20s, looking at this differently and more strategically. And so one, I realized, because when I do lean in to a physical health goal, I know exactly the strategy for it. And I don't lean in until I'm ready for the
Mm.
reasons I just said. If I know, now we can all be real with ourselves. That's one of our problems though. We BS other people, but BSing yourself is the worst thing. So if you are willing to be real with yourself, you know whether or not you're really for real about said goal. So when I am considering a physical health goal, my first question is, am I for real? Like, and sometimes I know I'm moving towards it, but I'm really not. If I ask myself, are you like, or is it burning in you to like really be about this? And if it's not, I don't start yet
Mm.
because I know I'm gonna BS it, and then I don't want to facilitate that feeling of failure and funk. So I first try to at least get as close as possible. As like, okay, I'm really for real. I don't know why we getting this feedback. I'm really for real about um, being being consistent with this, right? So then when I do that, I start with something small because again, trap number 2 is going out here and setting the big boy goal, right? So especially if I'm coming off of a long time of nothingness, right? And I never do Mondays. That's another thing people always do, starting on my I never why would you start on Monday? Monday is the beginning of the week. This is a lot going on. I always start on the weekend, either a Saturday or a Sunday, because I know that I'm probably going to waffle and vacillate a bit because I'm not necessarily as excited as I would want myself to be. And now I've got all day to play around with my mind and know, Liz, yes, you need to know. I don't really feel it. You know what I mean? All the way until maybe later in the day when I finally push myself to do it. When you start on a weekday, ain't no room for error there. Start in the morning. If you didn't get up because you was tired, now you started off with failure, and then boom, now it's late. I'm tired, and then boom, it didn't happen, and then now you do 5 days in a row because, right? So I start on a weekend just because it's more likely I'm gonna win the first like outing, if you will, and then from there, and I start with something small. Like I typically I don't start with let me do my full workout. I just say let me do, maybe it's 10 minutes cardio or something like that. Because for me, at the beginning, the win is that I just did it. It's not even about the outcomes yet, just that I'm active and consistent. So that's where I start. And then I build myself up into kind of adding on. Right. And a lot of times, if you just say, I'm only going to do 10 minutes, by the time you get to minute 10, you feel inspired and you can end up going longer. And I give myself permission to do that. But I never start that way early on because I just know. I know myself. Be honest. If I look back at the games I've played with myself, these are, you know what I mean? So I kind of figured this out as the strategy. Now, you all, this might be helpful. You might be hearing this like, oh my God, I could see that working. Maybe you go try this and it works for you. Maybe not, though. You might be one of those extremist people, Lane. Maybe that's why you're crazy, but I say crazy. Like, something like that, because some people just, if it ain't something crazy hard for you, maybe you have to do that. But I think for a lot of us, starting with something like that is just not helpful. And so that's sort of a super summary of at least how I kick it off. And I
Yeah,
don't even try to play like I'm getting ready to go hard like that, because come on. I mean, now, because we all know, if you've listened to this long enough, you know that Liz goes hard in business, right, in the business lane. Now, I will go and create some huge goal in that area, because that's my sweet spot. And so I'll bust it out, and I've actually had to work on not going so big, so hard, so fast, because I can do it, and I will, and I'll nearly kill myself just to get it done. But physical health, your girl already knows, like, this is not the lane that we're living in and winning in. So no, we would never start like that.
yeah, no, I'm thinking too. So I do think that there are people out there who thrive with really, really extreme physical activity. And I think we're
Mhm.
not really talking to those people because they've
And if
already
you
figured
are,
out.
go forth and be great, honey. Go
Yeah,
forth,
like
do it. We all
that's
cheer you
different.
on.
And I think what I figured out about myself is that I'm really not that. Like I don't think that that is me. And I think to your point, growing up, I actually was into dance, and so when I did ballet as a kid or young adult, it was very structured and it was very like easy for me to stay with it for that reason. And I think it also was a shift for me as I got older, and for anyone who maybe did some kind of like athletic art form or even sports as a kid, it's the competitive and performance nature for each of
Mhm,
those different things that I think the shift in mindset has to be, what is your why for the physical activity? Because
mhm.
as a kid or young adult, dancing for me, the why was
Fun.
fun and community and just,
Mhm.
the experience of it. I wasn't trying to make my body look a certain way. Obviously there was some body image stuff when it comes to dance, like there's that's a whole different conversation, but I think it's so much more about the positives that go with, that don't have anything to do with what you look like, the weight that you're losing. And I think to tap back into that, but also to know that those structured activities aren't necessarily the same as an adult. So it's how do we access the fun and the community piece,
Mhm.
or the whatever it was for you that maybe you can tap back into. And I think, when you're talking about your what's worked for you, it's actually really, really different for me, which I think is interesting, and maybe for members like helpful or people listening, because the way that I have found more recently in the last year or two to make physical activity a lifestyle for me is really different than yours. And it's actually the complete lack of structure that works for me. So you're talking about I start on this day, or I
Well,
these.
and let me say this though. I was more thinking of that beyond the conversation about lifestyle. I was just saying, like, if I want to start really being
Hmm.
intentional about physical health. Now, if I were saying that because I think sometimes there are times where you really need to do something more than a lifestyle.
Hmm.
And there are, and lifestyle can be a part of it, or on it can be en route to it, but you need some real structure. So I was more referring to, in if I'm like, I know I need structure. Now, if I were just saying for now, I'm not going hard on structured,
Hmm.
I'm just going for the lifestyle, then what I would do, and I've done this, is say, I like taking walks, right? So I'm going to think about engaging in maybe taking some walks, or even just thinking about, like, errands I run, where do I park, just simple things like that. I think of those kinds of things more on the lifestyle thing, to say, what are things I can be just baking into how I live every day, and things that I'm doing that ultimately contribute to physical activity, right?
Hmm.
and the overall idea of physical health, but wouldn't necessarily um, amount to a really specific goal other
Mhm.
than maintaining activity. So I don't know if that clarifies that, but
Yeah, that
mm,
does. That
I would
does. And I
approach
think,
that totally different.
yeah, I think that, well, that makes sense. And I think that in this conversation, the reason for, well, I think that a lot of us, like I said, like are have no trouble making a goal, and even like to get started on that goal when it comes to physical activity. And I think the transition piece that's hard for more people is how to transition that into a lifestyle. So when you think about, and I guess it does matter from the very beginning, like how you're even thinking about the goal, because
Mhm,
what's the why behind it? Is it that you
mhm,
want to look a certain way by a certain time, or is it that you just want to feel better overall, or that you
mhm.
just know that your physical health could be improved if you had more fitness and more physical activity in your life? And I think that that's the place to start, is more the why. But I think, yeah, to your point, for me, when I've been successful at like activating physical fitness into my lifestyle, when I took away the structure and the expectations and the
Yeah,
sense of like
absolutely.
I need to look a certain way,
Agreed.
that's when I opened myself up to just enjoying physical activity
Activity
as an activity, and not just like a thing that I'm doing to
to get to a certain outcome.
achieve an
Yeah.
outcome. And I think that's the key piece. And so, for me, it was really a disruptive, fairly disruptive thing. And I think moving out here in some ways was really even took that to a new level, when I was put myself into a place where I could be outside more, and actually enjoy it for more times in the year. It's nicer weather more times out of the year, and it's just more accessible to go hiking and to go on walks, that kind of thing. That was a big piece. It's actually more enjoyable. Like, instead of just feeling like I should do this, it's like we want to go and explore this new trail or whatever it is. And then, having this exercise bike, I have it right next to me in this office. And so I think just having something that is super easy and low maintenance, and it
Mhm.
doesn't, I have no like plan with it. I don't say I have to do this many miles every day, or this I have to get to this point every day. If I just ride a mile on like a low resistance, that's still something, and I still feel
Mhm.
better after I did it. So the lack of expectation of myself was really
Mhm.
the big win, and not saying that I have to do something every day, or do something that, yeah, the out like taking away the outcome expectation, I think, is where the
Yeah.
lifestyle piece comes in.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point. I feel it's worth circling back to the why. The
Mhm.
why. I mean, we all are living different lives, and we have different seasons within our lives where that why changes, including age, right? So, Lane, you're younger than me and some other listeners, right? And so, when you haven't yet gotten to a point where there are physical health realities coming for you, you either have, on one hand, you could have a better chance of just seeing this as a lifestyle thing, and that's fine because you don't have the doctor telling you that this diabetes issue or this weight issue or this whatever issue really warrants you to start taking this really serious, right? Because
Mhm.
you're just you're or perhaps because you're young, because I know a lot of young people are not thinking about physical health. I feel like we're in a trend right now and have been over the last few years where more young people are, but when that trend goes away and those the younger people who weren't part of that trend are coming up, they may not be thinking about physical health as an issue because
Right.
for a lot of humans, we don't have a goal until there's a problem. So for folks who are leaning into the conversation about physical health goals because there is an issue, that I think makes it harder
Mhm.
because you feel pressed to go beyond the lifestyle piece. And I think maybe for you, Lane, because you're younger and there are certain things that haven't come to find you yet, which they will when you get older. You have the benefit of being a little more casual about it.
Mhm.
But ideally, and this is the sad thing about us as humans generally, we tend to not. be able to activate and discipline ourselves until some stuff hits the fan, whether it's fitness because you got a diagnosis, or it's financial management because you lost a home, or whatever it is. Like, we tend to unfortunately struggle to activate on our own without getting forced. So ideally, all of us can work towards thinking about this lifestyle component, so that that's always there, more as just the foundation for, at
Mhm.
minimum, I live in a way where I'm generally active, I'm generally thoughtful, whether or not I'm going hard in the paint on either working out and or watching what I eat or whatever, so that then we get ourselves away from this reality where you're all or nothing.
Mhm.
Right, because I know we have some, Joy Society members we've had conversations with. Well, I can think of one in particular who, when we've talked to her or been in spaces with her, she's either all in and living her best life on this physical health piece,
Mhm.
or she's on the full other end eating a whole bag of cookies, blah, 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 right? And so one of the dangers of not at least having a general commitment to an active life kind of a thing
Mhm.
is that you're prone to then activating this extreme thing, and then you fall off and you go from 0 to 100, 0 to 100, 0 to 100. And there's physical health consequences, as well as mindset confidence consequences when you show up like that. So I think for all of us, perhaps a suggestion is, let's just start with considering exploring on a really in a casual way, this idea of living a generally active slash healthy lifestyle, so that we remove a lot of that pressure and extremeness. And then we can activate maybe and go a little bit harder when we have some goals we really want to get to. But that also makes it an easier starting point when you're not really starting at zero, because at least, you've been generally active,
Right.
not over here trying to go from nothing and your body ain't talking to you like, what we doing? We don't be doing this. What we doing right now? Right. And it's
Right.
in the mind, right? The mind is able to lean into it a little more. And
Mhm.
it's, again, not such an extreme 0 to 100 kind of a feeling.
I agree, and I think something that kind of popped into my head when you were just talking is also, I think one of the ways we kind of screw ourselves when we set these physical fitness goals is that we do forget about physical health as a holistic thing, and it's not just physical activity, because you could go out to the gym every single day and go hard for an hour or 2 hours every day at the gym and still be really not healthy. And I
Mhm.
think so when you look at, even just, you're talking about our member who struggles with the all in or all out kind of mentality, it's it's never just physical fitness. So today we're talking about physical activity because
Mhm.
that's a way into discussing physical health. But I think one of the big things is that people forget that sleep, diet, the things, that the amount of water that you drink, like those
Look,
are
let me get my
all,
water before
yeah,
something.
those,
For
yeah.
my girl call me talking about, have you done your water today?
Right. I think that all of those are just as important as physical activity. Like, you cannot achieve your physical fitness goals, let alone make them a lifestyle, if you're not also doing and valuing all of those things just as much. Your diet can totally sabotage any progress that you've made. Your diet can also make you take you into a new level where it is like you are
Yeah, and I
solving.
have been the person who
Yeah.
was going hard on working out, but wasn't changing none of my eating. And you talk about getting
Yeah.
frustrated, and you ain't gonna see no results, honey, because
Yeah.
the
Or
way you
yeah.
eating is not gonna work.
Well, and then there's the flip side where it's like, maybe your diet, maybe you are like, your diet is the problem. And so it's, you don't maybe need to be spending all this time and energy figuring out an exercise plan when you're
Mhm.
already, your lifestyle is active. You're fine. It's that you need to focus on your diet, and you need to
Mhm.
figure out the things that you're putting into your body that are maybe contributing to the way that you're feeling, or the diagnosis that you got, or the fact that you don't look the way that you feel like you want to look, if you're most confident. So I think And then there's sleep, and then there's all these other physical health components that I think if you focus so much on the physical fitness aspect, because I think our culture kind of teaches us that like you should just go to the gym and you'll be fine, or like, you know, you can do this physical workout routine, this 30-day physical fitness challenge, and you'll see results right away. Like that that isn't realistic, and it also isn't again sustainable for the life for the lifestyle changes. So the true lifestyle changes have to occur everywhere. And
Mhm.
if you feel like fitness is really the area that you're the most lacking in physical health, and you really want to focus on that, then I do think that's more about, you know, setting a goal like you were talking about, Liz, and really getting into this as a how do you start from nothing versus maybe it's just a factor of making adjustments in small adjustments in multiple areas, and that might take you to where you need to go. And yeah, I think about, so my boyfriend actually, he the shift from working in the office to working at home, it was a lot about his diet changed, and that was, we didn't even realize how much maybe the just the quick fast food out at
Mhm.
like when you're,
Mhm.
you know, you're just driving into work and you pick up the breakfast sandwich, or you know, you leave and get a quick lunch somewhere like that. The difference of that versus eating every meal at home, just that, it wasn't even like we were trying to be super healthy at home. It was just the shift of like
Yep, yep.
eating at home versus eating out, that changed his entire physical appearance almost. So it's like you don't even know if he just started going to the gym and kept doing what he was doing diet wise, we might not have seen that, he might not have seen the same kind of differences or felt different and felt better. So I think it's the way that you look at it holistically is more important than just saying
Yeah.
we need to work in more physical activity, because do you really? Maybe your physical activity is, we're not all supposed to just be going to the gym every single day. I don't know that that is healthy for every single person. Maybe for some, but it's not always about increasing your physical activity so drastically.
Yeah, that also reminds me, before we move into just final thoughts,
Mhm.
that, again, the tying between the mind and body, and we could stay another hour and talk about that,
Yeah.
but we're not. I will just also remind folks that several folks have had physical health goals, specifically like exercise type goals, that they have on multiple occasions fallen short of. And the reason is because there is a mind
Mhm.
slash behavioral, some other component at play as to why you are doing or not doing the things you want to do or not do. For
Mhm.
example, there's a lot of folks who, from an eating perspective, are emotional eaters. And
Mhm.
so you can do all the stuff you wanna do. You can work out, you can try to change what you buy at the store, but if we don't address whatever the emotional tie to food is, or how you see food and how it comforts you and stuff like that, you're not gonna be able to maintain it, because there's some other work
Mhm.
to be done and tied to why you are inactive or active, eating this way versus eating that way. And so there's so much to us as humans as we think about physical health, which seems simple. It's really not. There's so many different
Yeah.
things to consider. So as we move into final thoughts and suggestions, that would be my first, is if you're someone who has attempted multiple times, a there it's worth looking into whether there is some behavioral, mental, emotional ties to that are preventing you from being
Right.
able to be consistent. B, again, some of this just has to do with what we talked about when we first started this conversation, is the if we're only doing this one way, where we're just trying to go from 0 to 100, extreme goals, extreme actions right off the top, for most people that just doesn't work. So thinking about more of a scaled activity, which is why I'm so excited that our app is almost ready, because our proprietary goal setting component to our new app will support folks in goal setting in a more guided and thoughtful way, that
Mhm.
makes sure that we're not taking on too much too fast, that we're being thoughtful about potential barriers from the beginning, We're thinking about what we might need to double up in as it relates to support, or other tools that would be helpful to ensure that we're setting goals in a way that we can achieve and are sticking to them, as well as being able to do that collectively. So I can't wait for that. Shameless plug there. But I'll kick it to you, Lane, for any final thoughts or suggestions.
Yeah, I just want to, I guess, reiterate the importance of the why behind it. And I definitely don't judge at all if your why is to fit into the dress. That's valid. And I've been there too. I think there are whys that are around that, and that's a different conversation. But
Mhm.
the why being I want to feel better or I want to improve my physical health, that why looks different, and
Mhm.
that requires a different approach, I think, and that is more about lifestyle changes. So that goes with everything that we've said about the difference between just doing something as a goal and as a lifestyle, setting yourself up to take that goal further and to make it more permanent. Because when we talk about physical health, that doesn't go away. Your physical fitness is only becomes more
And we
important.
only get one body, y'all.
You only
Those
get
of
one
us who are
body.
older are being reminded of that every day. There's no trade ins, apparently.
And it's only more important as you get older, to your point. So it actually is now is the time. And I do feel that, even though I'm really grateful for my current health, I know that what I'm setting up for myself now is an investment in my future health. So it is, the time is now to actually to make these changes and make them more permanent, so that we're not 10 years from now saying, well, it's New Year's again, let me set another fitness goal. That gets old. So
Yeah.
let's not keep doing that, and let's make these fitness goals more permanent and more
Yeah.
of a lasting change. That'd be my
Yeah,
honest.
I would lastly add, and we've already said this, but just a little extra twist to it. I just thinking about, physical health is not necessarily, a- you're not necessarily able to accurately assess your physical health based on what you look like on the outside.
Right.
And so I think it's easy to say, oh, if I'm overweight, or especially severely overweight, then that's the obvious. Oh yeah, I got to get it together. But I want to caution those who may not necessarily show physical signs of
Mhm.
of not so awesome physical health, that physical health is not just noted by our weight and how we look just at glance, because many of us look fine on the outside, are generally looking okay, but that doesn't mean we're physically healthy. So just want to also note that as we wrap up, that again, we could talk for hours on this, but I think ultimately we could conclude physical health means a lot of things. It's more dynamic than one may think. And our hope for you, as you consider what we've discussed today, is that you make it a goal generally just to be generally healthy. And obviously, if that means that you need to double down in certain ways, then great. But ideally, let's just make the goal of being generally physically healthy, which is not tied to a specific number or whatnot. It's more about the overall reality of being healthy, and that can mean a lot of things. So,
Yeah, great
so
point.
thank you all for hanging with us as you always do. We will see you very soon on the next Cup of Joy. Take care.